property in a historically lower income neighborhood becomes desirable to local developers. This causes wealthier people to start buying homes there, which changes the social and economic weave of the area and pushes out people who have lived there for generations. This is usually done by raising rent and property taxes to the point where the people that previously lived there are unable to afford it anymore.
Durham, North Carolina is one of the most gentrified cities in America and has been for over 2 decades. People have figured out that North Carolina is a great place to live, and they're not wrong. But the economic boom has sparked a rise in population, which brings more people to the Raleigh-Durham area. Duke University has been a big factor in the growth of Durham's high-income population.
And there are people who are like alums of Duke who went to school there like 10, 15 years ago, and people come back and they talk about like their relationship with Durham, and they say, oh yeah, like no one used to go into Durham. It was too like unsafe.
There are usually 2 opposing sides on this topic. One is anti-gentrification and generally more progressive, while the other side is pro-gentrification and generally more conservative. Let's talk about the anti-gentrification side first. Affordable housing is a popular topic among Democratic lawmakers. Very recently, many large corporations such as Google and Apple have been donating millions and even billions to the state of California for affordable housing. Silicon Valley, like Durham, brings a lot of higher income residents. When realtors and developers see this happening, they realize that they can raise the rent on property. They know that the new residents will be able to afford higher rent, which makes them more money. When a lower income neighborhood becomes higher income, the previous residents need somewhere to go. They are usually spread out into other parts of the city, county, state, or even country. Their community is broken up and is usually hard to reform.
I mean, the biggest push in Durham right now is to build more affordable housing units, right? Is to solve the problem of people like not having a place to live currently, or people being pushed out because of increases in rent.
What was previously mentioned about big corporations giving billions to affordable housing has a hint of irony to it. For starters, a lot of this gentrification may have actually been started by the influx of money from such tech companies as Apple and Google. Now you may be thinking that billions of dollars should help fix this problem, but even that might not be enough for the problem of this scale, and even throwing money at the problem won't necessarily fix the problem. More drastic measures will need to be taken to solve it. Now, let's talk about the pro-gentrification side. People who support this idea usually think that they are making the city safer by building these luxury apartments, and that they are better for the community because they are nicer. Some local governments encourage this process because of the tax money it may bring to the city. Another argument for gentrification is that it's just modern capitalism. Some people argue that it isn't any different than a large company running a small company out of business. The higher income residents are willing to pay higher rent, which leads to the previous residents being unable to pay the rent. So basically, this process replaces the previous residents with new ones. There have been studies to show the correlation between concentration of low-income residents and crime. But when people get relocated because of eviction, they still end up together in the low-rent properties. The rent on these properties might also go up, and the process repeats itself. Having multiple evictions isn't good for finding a new job. Employers often look at evictions as a bad grade when they're hiring new employees. Without a stable income, many are forced into homelessness, and when you go into homelessness, it's often very difficult or even impossible to get out of.
Let me start on housing. Many of you know that we have a black-white wealth gap in America, and we've had it since we first started measuring by race back in the 1940s. One of the principal reasons for that is access to housing, because housing is the way that working families, that middle-class families, build wealth over time.
We cannot ignore that our homelessness crisis is directly linked to the affordable housing crisis. Too many people cannot afford to keep a roof over their head.
As you can tell, lawmakers and presidential candidates have a lot of great thoughts on this problem. Equality has been a point of interest in the presidential debates, and gentrification falls under that umbrella. Candidates agree that solving the affordable housing crisis is a step in the right direction to a more perfect union.
Some of the ways this problem could be solved are introducing laws that lock rent, as well as encouraging developers to build more affordable housing units and such. Also, increasing funding for local governments will decrease their reliance on tax dollars that this process may bring. We are hoping the candidates for the presidency will address this issue at the federal level.